In my previous life, I was bound to Ethan Walker by an engagement arranged by our families, a promise forged in childhood that I believed would shape my future. We grew up together, inseparable from kindergarten to high school, sharing laughter, secrets, and dreams. Ethan was my constant, my protector who skipped school to care for me when I was sick, my partner in every plan. I never imagined that could change until Emily Lynn, a poor but charming transfer student, arrived at our school. Her presence unraveled everything. Ethan's attention shifted, drawn to her vulnerability and quiet defiance. Within a month, he wanted to end our engagement, claiming Emily needed him more. Heartbroken, I refused to let go, and our families intervened, forcing Ethan to stay. We studied abroad, married, and he became the model husband, attentive, polished, the envy of our social circle. But beneath the facade, resentment simmered. When I was pregnant, he took me on a trip, only to push me into the sea, his voice wild with blame. If you hadn't forced me to marry you, Emily would still be alive. You owe her, and you'll pay double. Emily, he learned, had dropped out, married a thug, and died tragically. He held me responsible. Reborn, I returned to the day Ethan asked to break our engagement. This time, I agreed without hesitation. I don't want to study abroad with you, I said. Stunned, he expected resistance, but I was done clinging. Explain it to your family. I told him, granting his wish to be with Emily. I wouldn't let his choices define my future again. With a second chance, I'd rewrite my story, free from Ethan, free from guilt, and ready to reclaim my life. Chapter 1. The Decision. The moment Ethan Walker asked to call off our engagement, I felt a strange calm wash over me. In my previous life, his words had shattered me, but now, reborn on this pivotal day, I saw them as freedom. I don't want to study abroad with you anymore, I said, my voice steady. Ethan's eyes widened, his confident demeanor faltering. He'd expected tears, arguments, or desperation, anything but my agreement. Sophia, you're serious? He stammered, searching my face for a hint of the clingy girl he knew. I nodded, my resolve unshaken. I'm fine with it. Just explain everything to your family. His frown deepened, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. Our engagement wasn't just between us. It was a pact between the Walkers and my family, tangled in business deals and social expectations. Breaking it wasn't as simple as he thought. I wish you and Emily happiness, I added, turning away before he could respond. My heart raced, not from pain, but from the thrill of rewriting my story. Ethan and I had grown up together, our lives intertwined since childhood. From sharing crayons in kindergarten to walking home hand in hand in high school, he was my constant. When I was sick, he'd skip school to bring me soup. I'd built my future around him, blind to how fragile that foundation was. Then came Emily Lynn, the transfer student with a sob story and a knack for drawing attention. Within a month, Ethan's gaze shifted. He saw her as someone who needed him, unlike me, who had everything, wealth, status, security. In my past life, I fought to keep him, dragging our families into the mess. His parents forced him to apologize, and we married, but his resentment festered until it cost me my life and our unborn child's. This time, I wouldn't cling. Let him choose Emily. Let him face the consequences. As I walked home, memories of our past flooded back. Ethan's laughter, his protective arm around me. But those moments belonged to a girl who didn't know better. Now, I saw the cracks. His ease in dismissing my feelings, his quickness to prioritize Emily. I wouldn't let his choices define me again. At home, I braced for the next step, telling my parents would spark a storm, but I was ready. Ethan's hesitation told me he hadn't thought this through. His family's business relied on ours, and his parents would fight to keep the engagement intact. But I was done being the dutiful fiancé. This was my second chance, and I'd use it to build a life free from Ethan's shadow, one where I chose my own path. Chapter 2. Family Fallout. The air in our living room was thick with tension as I broke the news to my parents. Ethan wants to call off the engagement, I said, keeping my tone neutral. My mother's teacup clattered against its saucer, and my father's face darkened, his jaw tightening. That boy has lost his mind, he growled, already reaching for his phone to call the Walkers. My mother's eyes burned with betrayal. After everything we've done for them, I raised a hand, stopping them. I agreed to it. Their shock mirrored Ethan's, but I pressed on. I don't want to force him. Let him go. My father's brow furrowed, suspicion creeping in. This is about that transfer girl, isn't it? The Walkers need to rein him in. I shook my head, insisting we let it be. Forcing Ethan last time had led to disaster. This time, I'd let him sink or swim on his own. Hours later, the Walkers arrived, uninvited and frantic. Mrs. Walker's eyes were red, her voice trembling as she pushed Ethan forward. His face was bruised, a fresh mark from his father's anger. "Sophia, darling, he's just stressed about college applications," she pleaded, forcing a smile. He didn't mean it. Ethan kept his head down, silent, as Mr. Walker muttered apologies, promising to fix their son. I stayed calm, repeating that I respected Ethan's choice. Mrs. Walker's desperation grew, her hands clutching mine. "You two are meant to be. Don't let some nobody ruin it." Ethan flinched at nobody, but said nothing. I pulled my hands free. He's made his decision, and so have I. My parents watched, torn between fury and pride in my resolve. The Walkers left, defeated, Ethan trailing behind them like a scolded child. As the door closed, my mother sighed. "Their business will crumble without our support." "Are you sure?" I nodded. I'd seen the future. Ethan's betrayal, his rage. I wouldn't chain myself to that again. That night, I lay awake, the weight of my decision settling in. Letting go of Ethan meant letting go of the girl I used to be, the one who thought love meant enduring pain. But memories of his growing distance haunted me. How he'd stopped noticing my efforts. How Emily's arrival had exposed his fickle heart. Tomorrow, I'd face the school's whispers and Emily's inevitable gloating, but I felt lighter. The Walkers' panic hinted at Ethan's unraveling, and I wouldn't be there to pick up the pieces. My future was mine to shape, and I'd start by focusing on my dreams, Stanford, independence, a life unburdened by his choices. Chapter 3. Emily's Provocation. The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages from an unknown number. Emily Lynn's words dripped with triumph. "We're together now. Ethan loves me. You can't control feelings." Each line was a calculated jab, meant to sting. I deleted them without replying, her taunts sliding off me like water. In my past life, her messages would have gutted me, but now I saw them for what they were, petty attempts to claim victory. I had bigger plans. At school, the air buzzed with gossip. Ethan and Emily's relationship was no secret, and eyes followed me as I walked to class. I ignored them, focusing on my Stanford application. I'd already secured offers from top universities, but Stanford was my dream, a fresh start far from this drama. My friend Jason Shun caught up with me at lunch, his eyes blazing. "Emily's telling everyone Ethan dumped you for her. She's acting like she's won some prize." I shrugged. "Let her. She's welcome to him." Jason snorted, unconvinced. "She's trouble, Sophia. Always playing the victim to get what she wants." He wasn't wrong. Emily's pitiful act had hooked Ethan, and now she was milking it for attention. I remembered how she'd cried during PE, claiming we excluded her, only for Ethan to hand her my tennis racket. That was the first crack in our bond, and she'd exploited it masterfully. Later, another message from Emily. "He's not studying abroad with you. You're nothing without him." I laughed. In my previous life, I'd given up Ivy League offers to follow Ethan to a lesser school. Not this time. I blocked her number, cutting off her venom. My focus was on my future, not her games. By afternoon, whispers of Ethan's defiance reached me. He'd argued with his parents again, refusing to back down about Emily. Classmates shared stories of him skipping classes to be with her, their public displays growing bolder. I felt a pang, not for Ethan, but for the years I'd invested in him. Those memories belonged to a naive girl, not the one standing here now. As I packed my books, Jason leaned in. "You're better off, you know. Stanford's waiting." His words grounded me. Emily could provoke all she wanted. I was done playing her game. Ethan's choices were his burden now. Tomorrow, I'd face more of their drama, but each step took me closer to freedom, a life where I define my worth, not Ethan or Emily. Chapter 4. Ethan's Rebellion. Ethan's rebellion against his family became the talk of the school. By midweek, stories swirled of him storming out of the Walker household, shouting about his love for Emily. Classmates whispered about him skipping classes, smoking in the parking lot, and even getting into a fight at a local diner. I overheard a girl in math class say, "He's throwing everything away for her." I kept my head down, focusing on my notes. Ethan's spiral wasn't my problem anymore. Jason caught me after school, his face a mix of disgust and amusement. "Ethan's acting like he's in some tragic romance novel. He told his dad he'd rather drop out than give up Emily." I raised an eyebrow. "He'll regret that." In my past life, Ethan's resentment had festered quietly. Now, it was erupting publicly. His parents' business teetered without my family support, and his defiance only tightened the noose. I remember the Ethan I once knew, diligent, charming, always by my side. But Emily's arrival had exposed a side of him I hadn't seen. Impulsive, easily swayed. Her sob story about her tough life had hooked him, and he cast himself as her savior. I tried to warn him in my previous life, but he'd brushed me off, accusing me of jealousy. Now, I let him dive headfirst into his mistake. At home, my parents were still fuming about the Walkers. Their stocks plummeting, my father said over dinner. "Ethan's foolishness is costing them." I nodded, unsurprised. The Walkers had always chased risky ventures, banking on our family's network to bail them out. Without our alliance, they were exposed. I felt no guilt. Ethan had chosen this path. That evening, I reviewed my Stanford application, double-checking essays and recommendations. Each word was a step toward a future free from Ethan's chaos. But memories crept in. How he'd once promised to build a life with me. How his smile had felt like home. Those promises were dust now, scattered by his betrayal. Emily's influence was a catalyst, but Ethan's choices were his own. As I closed my laptop, my phone pinged with a group chat message. A blurry photo showed Ethan and Emily at an internet cafe, laughing, cigarettes in hand. "Pathetic," Jason texted. "He's tanking his exams for her." I didn't respond. Ethan's rebellion was his undoing, not mine. Tomorrow, I'd face more gossip, but I'd hold my head high. My path was clear: Stanford, independence, a life where Ethan's mistakes couldn't touch me. Let him burn his bridges. I was building my own. Chapter 5. The Tennis Racket Incident. The memory of the tennis racket incident still stung, a vivid reminder of how Ethan's loyalty began to crack. It was a warm spring day during PE class when students could choose their activities. Most girls picked badminton or tennis, but tennis required personal rackets, which Emily didn't have. She stood alone, eyes glistening, claiming the other girls were excluding her. I watched from the sidelines, uneasy but uninvolved, until Ethan crossed a line. Without asking, he opened my locker and pulled out my spare tennis racket, the one I bought because he'd said the color didn't suit me. "You're not using it," he said casually, handing it to Emily. "Might as well let her borrow it." Emily's grateful smile was a performance, her eyes darting to me with a glint of triumph. I froze, hurt not just by the act, but by Ethan's dismissal of my feelings. "If you're upset, I'll buy you a new one," he added, as if a racket could replace trust. I didn't make him replace it, but the incident festered. Emily had maneuvered me into a moral trap. If I objected, I was the rich girl bullying the poor one. If I stayed silent, she won Ethan's favor. I chose silence, but it cost me my racket and my dignity. Ethan didn't see her manipulation. He saw a damsel in distress. That moment marked the start of his shift, the first time I felt him slip away. Back in the present, I shook off the memory as I walked to school. Emily's messages from yesterday still lingered in my mind, but I refused to engage. Today, I overheard classmates gossiping about Ethan's latest stunt, skipping a mock exam to meet Emily at a cafe. His rebellion was escalating, and I wondered how long his parents would tolerate it. Jason joined me at lunch, still fuming about Ethan. That racket thing was just the beginning, he said. Emily's got him wrapped around her finger. I nodded, remembering how she'd thanked Ethan endlessly, her gratitude a calculated act. It wasn't about the racket. It was about staking her claim. I'd been too naive to fight back then, but now I saw her tactics clearly. As I packed my bag, a classmate mentioned Emily was now borrowing Ethan's notes, claiming she needed help to catch up. The pattern was familiar. Emily inserting herself, Ethan enabling her. I felt a flicker of pity for him, but it passed. He'd chosen this. Tomorrow, I'd face more of their drama, but my focus was on my future, a future where I'd never again let someone take what was mine. Chapter 6: Classroom Tensions. Emily's next move was bolder, cementing her hold on Ethan and pushing me further out. She volunteered to take over Ethan's classroom duties, cleaning the board, organizing supplies, tasks we'd always done together. When I protested, she insisted on doing both our shares, claiming it was to help me. "I don't need your help," I said firmly, but she acted deaf, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. The next day, she stayed late, cleaning alone, then cried at the bus stop because she'd missed the last bus. Our homeroom teacher called me in, her tone heavy with disappointment. "Emily was there so late, Sophia. She had no money for a cab. Why didn't you help her?" I explained I hadn't asked her to stay, but my words sounded hollow against her tears. Emily's dramatic display won her sympathy, while I looked like the domineering rich girl. Even Ethan, who knew the truth, didn't defend me. "She's a girl, Sophia. It's dangerous for her to be out late," he said, as if I'd forced her to stay. Furious, I snapped, "Then don't let her meddle in my responsibilities." He just shook his head, walking off to comfort her. Now, weeks after ending the engagement, I walked into class to find Emily in my old seat next to Ethan. Their heads were bent together, whispering over a textbook. Classmates shot me pitying glances, but I ignored them, taking a seat by the window. Jason slid into the chair beside me, muttering, "She's like a leech. Can't believe Ethan's buying it." I shrugged. He's made his choice. The teacher barely glanced at Ethan and Emily, who were now openly passing notes. Their blatant disregard for rules mirrored Ethan's growing recklessness outside school. I focused on my work, my Stanford application a lifeline. In my past life, I'd let Emily's tactics erode my confidence. Now, I saw them as desperate grabs for attention. After class, Jason vented. "She's playing the poor, hard-working student card, but she's just manipulating him. Ethan's too dumb to see it." I nodded, recalling how Emily's help always came with strings. She'd turned a simple classroom task into a stage for her victim act, and Ethan had fallen for it. I wouldn't let her pull me into another trap. As I left school, I saw Ethan and Emily laughing outside, her arm looped through his. The sight didn't hurt. It confirmed I'd made the right call. Tomorrow, I'd face more of her provocations, but I was learning to stay above it. My future was brighter than their fleeting drama, and I'd keep my eyes on that horizon. Chapter 7: The Cup Confrontation. The cup incident was another blow, one that cut deeper because of what it symbolized. Ethan had given me a limited edition cup from a brand collaboration, a rare gift I treasured because it came from him. During a break, Emily brought hot water for Ethan and me, placing the cup in front of me with a smile. "I thought you'd like some," she said sweetly. I stared at the cup, my stomach twisting. "I don't drink from cups touched by just anyone," I said, pushing it away. Her eyes welled up, and she whispered, I'll replace it, Sophia. Just give me time. Ethan jumped in, exasperated. Sophia, it's just a cup. You don't lack for anything. Don't make this hard for her. His words stung. He didn't even remember the cup's significance. To him, it was nothing. To me, it was a piece of our past. Emily's trembling voice and crocodile tears drew attention, and I felt the class's eyes on me, judging. Why do you always take her side? I demanded, my voice rising. Emily flinched, hiding behind Ethan, and he shot me a look that said I was the villain. Back in the present, that memory fueled my resolve as I navigated the school's gossip-filled halls. Emily's latest stunt was sitting in my old seat, but I barely noticed. My focus was on my Stanford essays, each word a brick in the wall between me and this drama. Jason caught up with me at lunch, still angry about the cup. She knew exactly what she was doing, he said. Touching your stuff to provoke you, then playing the victim. Classic. I nodded, sipping from a new cup I'd bought myself. Ethan didn't even notice it was his gift. Jason scoffed. He's blind. Always has been when it comes to her. The gossip around school had shifted. Ethan's rebellion was now public knowledge. He'd been caught smoking with Emily in the parking garage, and teachers had given up reprimanding them. Their defiance was a spectacle, but I refused to watch. After school, I overheard a classmate say Emily was now tutoring Ethan, despite her own mediocre grades. It was another ploy to stay close to him, and he was too smitten to question it. I felt a flicker of pity for the boy I'd once loved, but it faded fast. He'd chosen her manipulations over our history. Tomorrow, I'd face more of their antics, but I was done letting them affect me. My future at Stanford was my anchor, and no cup or person could pull me back into their chaos. Chapter 8. Cold War. The cup incident marked the start of a Cold War between Ethan and me. For days, we didn't speak, our once easy camaraderie replaced by a tense silence. I avoided him in the halls, and he stopped seeking me out. Emily, meanwhile, thrived in the chaos, her pitiful act drawing Ethan closer. My friend Jason was livid. It's not worth fighting over her, he said one afternoon, tossing a basketball between his hands. She's playing him, and he's too dumb to see it. Let go, Sophia. I tried, but the hurt lingered. I'd cared so deeply for Ethan, treasuring every moment we'd shared. Now, he didn't even notice my absence. I took the first step to mend things, suggesting we talk, only to learn Emily had started tutoring him part-time. She needs the money to replace your cup, Ethan explained, his tone indifferent. I stared, incredulous. I don't want her money or her help, I said. She crossed the line, but Emily insisted, her teary apologies a performance for Ethan's benefit. My disgust was palpable, but arguing felt pointless. Now, post-engagement, I walked through school with a new perspective. The Cold War was over. I'd ended it by letting Ethan go. Classmates still whispered about his antics with Emily, but I tuned them out. My Stanford application was nearly complete, and I spent lunch refining my essays. Jason joined me, his usual sarcasm in full force. Ethan's telling people he's free now. Free to tank his life, apparently. I smirked. His choice. That afternoon, I saw them in the courtyard, Emily clinging to Ethan's arm. She caught my eye and smiled smugly, but I looked away. Her provocations no longer stung. They were predictable. I remembered how, in my past life, I'd begged Ethan to stay, only for him to resent me. This time, I'd given him his freedom, and he was squandering it. Rumors of his latest fight, with a senior over Emily, reached me, and I felt nothing but detachment. At home, my parents noticed my lighter mood. "You're handling this well," my mother said, her tone cautious. I nodded. I'm done with him. Letting go of Ethan meant letting go of the pain he'd caused. Tomorrow, I'd face more gossip, maybe another of Emily's taunts, but I was ready. Jason's words echoed. Pick a new guy at Stanford. Anyone's better than him. I smiled at the thought. My future was bright, and no Cold War could dim it. Ethan's mistakes were his to bear, and I was finally free to move forward. Chapter 9. Breaking Free. The day my Stanford acceptance letter arrived, I felt a weight lift. The crisp envelope, embossed with the university's seal, was a ticket to a new life, one far from Ethan and Emily's drama. I sat in my room, rereading the letter, letting its promise sink in. In my past life, I'd turned down schools like this to follow Ethan. Not anymore. This was my chance to break free, and I seized it. At school, Ethan and Emily's antics had grown bolder. They were inseparable, skipping classes to hang out in the parking lot or at cafes. Classmates whispered about their public displays, kissing in hallways, laughing loudly during breaks. I ignored them, focusing on my final exams and packing for Stanford. Jason caught me in the library, grinning. "You're glowing, Sophia. Stanford's going to be lucky to have you." I smiled. "Thanks. I'm ready for a fresh start." Emily, predictably, couldn't resist a jab. During a class break, she approached, Ethan trailing behind. "Heard you're going to Stanford," she said, her tone laced with mockery. "Running away because you can't handle us?" Ethan's eyes flickered with discomfort, but he didn't stop her. I met her gaze coolly. "I'm not running. I'm moving forward. Enjoy your prize." Her smirk faltered, and I walked away, feeling untouchable. The memory of Ethan's betrayal in my past life lingered, his rage as he pushed me into the sea, blaming me for Emily's tragic end. But now I saw his choices clearly. He'd traded our history for a fleeting infatuation, and I wouldn't pay for his mistakes again. My focus was on Stanford, new challenges, new people, a world where I define my worth. That evening, I sorted through old photos, pausing at one of Ethan and me at a school dance. We'd been happy once, or so I'd thought. I tucked it away, not out of pain, but acceptance. He was part of my past, not my future. Jason texted, joking about Ethan's latest stunt, crashing a party and getting kicked out. "He's a mess," he wrote. I didn't reply. Ethan's downfall was his own making. As I packed my desk, I found a cup he'd given me. For a moment, I hesitated, then set it aside for donation. It was just a thing, not a tether. Tomorrow, I'd face more of their drama, but it wouldn't shake me. Stanford was calling, and I was ready to answer, free from Ethan, free from regret, ready to build a life that was mine alone. Chapter 10. Mrs. Walker's Plea. Mrs. Walker's visit came like a storm, her desperation filling our living room. She gripped my arm, tears streaming. "Sophia, please talk to Ethan. That girl's ruining him." Her voice cracked as she listed his sins, skipping classes, drinking, fighting. His teachers called again. "He's smoking, getting into trouble. You've always been close. He'll listen to you." My mother tried to intervene, but Mrs. Walker was relentless, her hands trembling. "His father's furious. Their business is struggling without your family support." I pulled away gently but firmly. "I can't help, Mrs. Walker. Ethan made his choice." Her eyes widened, pleading, but I stood my ground. In my past life, I'd have caved, desperate to fix things. Now I saw the futility. Ethan's spiral wasn't my responsibility. "He's with Emily now," I said. "Let him figure it out." Mrs. Walker sobbed, collapsing into my mother's arms, who shot me a questioning look. I shook my head. This wasn't my fight. After she left, my mother sighed. She also asked to borrow money. The Walkers overextended themselves again. I nodded, unsurprised. Their risky investments had always relied on our family's backing. Without the engagement, they were exposed. "Don't let them in again," I said. "We're done with them." My mother agreed, her expression a mix of pride and concern. At school the next day, the gossip was relentless. Ethan had been suspended for a day after a fight, and Emily was by his side, playing the loyal girlfriend. Jason scoffed as we walked to class. "His mom's begging you, and he's out here acting like a thug. Pathetic." I shrugged. "He's digging his own grave." I remembered Mrs. Walker's desperation in my past life, how she'd blamed me when Ethan's resentment turned deadly. This time, I'd stay clear. My Stanford preparations kept me grounded. I spent evenings researching dorms and courses, excited for the challenges ahead. Ethan's chaos felt distant, like a storm I'd already weathered. But the memory of his betrayal, pushing me into the sea, blaming me for Emily's fate, still lingered, a reminder to stay vigilant. I wouldn't let guilt or pity pull me back. As I left school, I saw Ethan and Emily arguing by the gate. Her voice was sharp, his face tense. For a moment, I wondered if the cracks were already showing. But I didn't linger. Tomorrow, I'd focus on my exams, my future. Mrs. Walker's pleas were a fading echo, and Ethan's choices were his own. I was moving toward Stanford, toward a life where I wrote my own story, unburdened by their mistakes. Chapter 11, Mall Encounter. The mall was crowded, buzzing with weekend shoppers, when I spotted Ethan and Emily across the aisle. I come to pick out a graduation gift for Jason, a small token for his unwavering support. Emily, transformed from her usual school persona, wore a tight skirt, curled hair, and flashy jewelry. She clung to Ethan's arm, pointing at a gold bracelet and giggling. When she saw me, her eyes lit up with smug satisfaction. Lifting her chin, she kissed Ethan, a deliberate display. I turned away, grabbing my prepaid purchase, a sketchbook for Jason, and headed out. Ethan's voice stopped me. "Sophia, wait." I turned, his expression a mix of guilt and defiance. Emily smirked, arm still looped through his. "Just wanted to say we're good, you know," he said, as if seeking absolution. I nodded curtly. "Good for you." Emily's smile widened. "We're happy, Sophia. You don't need to keep tabs on us." I ignored her, walking away. Her provocation was predictable, but it didn't touch me. I'd seen this act before. Her need to flaunt her victory. At home, I wrapped Jason's gift, my mind drifting to the mall. Emily's transformation wasn't surprising. At school, she played the pitiful student, but outside, she was bold, flashy. Ethan was blind to her duality, caught in her web. In my past life, I'd have felt humiliated by her display. Now, I felt nothing but indifference. My focus was on Stanford, on the life waiting for me. Jason texted later, ranting about Ethan's latest stunt, crashing a party with Emily and getting thrown out. "They're a walking disaster," he wrote. I smiled, agreeing. The mall encounter had shown me how far I'd come. Ethan's choices, his rebellion, his infatuation, were his burden. I remembered how, in my previous life, his resentment had festered until it turned deadly. That memory kept me grounded. The next day, I overheard classmates discussing Ethan and Emily's mall appearance. "She was all over him, acting like a queen," one said. I tuned it out, focusing on my final exam prep. Emily's games were irrelevant. She could play her role, but I was done being her audience. My future was at Stanford, where I'd build a life free from their drama. As I packed my bag, I thought of the bracelet Emily wanted. It was a symbol of her ambition, her need to prove she'd won Ethan. But I knew the truth. Nothing she gained would last. Tomorrow, I'd keep moving forward, my eyes on the horizon, ready for a life where I define my own worth. Chapter 12. Abroad and moving on. Stepping onto Stanford's campus felt like shedding an old skin. The California sun warmed my face, and the air hummed with possibility. New faces, cutting-edge research, a world far from Ethan's chaos. My days filled quickly with lectures, study groups, and late-night debates over quantum theories. For the first time, I felt truly free, unburdened by the weight of my past life's mistakes. Ethan and Emily were distant memories, their drama a faint echo. A month in, Jason video called, his face alight with excitement. "I got in my dream art school," he announced, waving his acceptance letter. I cheered, genuinely thrilled. "You're gonna kill it, Jason." He grinned, then leaned in, voice low. "Guess what? They posted the honor list at school. Your name's in the top 10, bold and enlarged." Ethan and Emily? Nowhere. She scored just over 400 on the entrance exam, barely enough for a junior college. Ethan did worse, like 30 points lower. He's claiming it's a grading error. I stayed quiet, unsurprised. Ethan's rebellion, skipping classes, smoking, fighting, had tanked his future. Emily's influence had only accelerated his fall. In my past life, I'd tied my dreams to his, sacrificing Ivy League offers. Now I was at Stanford, thriving, while he floundered. "They're a mess," Jason added. "Heard they're still together, but it's rocky." I nodded, feeling no pity. Ethan had chosen this path. My days at Stanford were packed, each one pushing me further from my old life. I joined a research team, diving into projects that challenged my mind. Classmates were brilliant, driven, and refreshingly free of high school pettiness. I made friends, people who valued me for my ideas, not my family's wealth or connections. The contrast with Ethan's world was stark. Memories of his betrayal still surfaced. His crazed scream as he pushed me into the sea, blaming me for Emily's death. But they no longer paralyzed me. I'd given him his freedom, and he'd squandered it. Now, I was building something new, something mine. Jason's call reminded me of home, but also of how far I'd come. As I walked to my dorm, I passed students laughing, studying, living. I belonged here. Tomorrow, I'd dive deeper into my research, my new life. Ethan and Emily's failures were their own, a footnote in my story. I was moving on, crafting a future where their mistakes couldn't touch me, where I was enough. Chapter 13. Ethan's Downfall. News of Ethan's downfall trickled through social media and group chats, a steady drip of confirmation that I'd made the right choice. Jason sent a screenshot of a local news article. Ethan and Emily had been caught sneaking into a bar underage, escorted out by police. "He's hit rock bottom," Jason texted. "Keeps blaming everyone but himself." I skimmed the article, feeling a strange detachment. Ethan's exam failure, scoring 30 points below Emily's meager 400, was just the start. He'd insisted on a regrade, only to be humiliated when the results stood. Back home, Ethan's rebellion had consequences. His parents' business, already shaky without my family's support, was crumbling. Classmates shared stories of his fights, his drinking, his defiance of teachers. Emily was always there, egging him on or playing the victim when things went south. I remembered her mall display, her smug kiss, her belief she'd won. Now, their love was a public spectacle, unraveling under pressure. At Stanford, I thrived, my days filled with lab work and new friendships. The contrast was stark. While Ethan spiraled, I was building a future. Yet, memories of my past life lingered. His rage, his accusation that I'd ruined Emily's life. I believed I could save him then. Now I saw his choices for what they were, his own. He traded ambition for infatuation, and the bill was due. Jason called that weekend, updating me. Ethan's parents cut him off. He's working some dead-end job to pay for Emily's junior college fees. She's still playing the poor girl card. I shook my head. Emily's tactics hadn't changed, but Ethan's blind devotion was his undoing. "He's not my problem," I said, and meant it. Stanford's challenges, complex equations, late-night study sessions, kept me grounded. I was no longer the girl who'd begged him to stay. A classmate mentioned Ethan's latest stunt. He'd crashed his father's car drunk. The Walkers were selling assets to cover debts. I felt a flicker of pity for Mrs. Walker, who'd begged me to intervene, but it passed. Ethan had chosen Emily over everything. His family, his future, me. I wouldn't carry his guilt. As I prepared for a presentation, I glanced at the Stanford seal on my notebook. It symbolized everything I'd earned: freedom, purpose, a fresh start. Tomorrow, I'd focus on my research, my goals. Ethan's downfall was a distant storm, one I'd escaped. His mistakes were his to bear, and I was done looking back. My life was here, now, and it was mine to shape. Chapter 14. Jason's Success. Jason's video call lit up my screen, his grin infectious as he held up his art school acceptance letter. "I did it, Sophia. I'm in." His excitement was a bright spot in my hectic Stanford schedule, and I laughed, cheering him on. "You're going to be a legend, Jason." He leaned back, still beaming. "Couldn't have done it without you hyping me up. How's Stanford treating you?" I told him about my research team, the late-night debates, the thrill of learning. "It's everything I hoped," I said. He nodded, then smirked. Meanwhile, Ethan and Emily are crashing and burning. Heard they're fighting all the time now. She's pushing him to pay for everything, but he's broke. I shrugged, unsurprised. Ethan's exam failure and reckless behavior had left him with nothing but regrets. Emily's hold on him was weakening as reality set in. "They deserve each other," I said, and Jason laughed. "Damn right. You're killing it, though. Makes me proud." We reminisced about high school, how he'd always had my back. Jason's passion for art had set him apart, his sketches a window into his soul. In my past life, he'd made it to his dream school, and I was thrilled to see history repeat itself for him. "You coming back for Chinese New Year?" he asked. I smiled. "Maybe. Haven't decided." Stanford had become my home, but Jason's friendship was a tether to my past, one I cherished. The call shifted my thoughts to Ethan. In my previous life, I tied my future to his, missing out on moments like this. Now I saw how small his world was compared to the one I was building. Jason's success mirrored mine, a reminder that hard work and loyalty paid off, unlike Ethan's blind devotion to Emily. Her schemes had unraveled, and their love was fracturing under the weight of their failures. As we hung up, I felt lighter. Jason's victory was a shared triumph, a contrast to Ethan's self-inflicted ruin. I walked to my next class, the Stanford campus vibrant around me. My research was gaining traction, and my professors saw potential in me. I was no longer defined by Ethan's betrayal or Emily's taunts. They were fading into irrelevance while I was soaring. Tomorrow, I dive deeper into my projects, maybe call Jason to plan a visit. His success spurred me on, a reminder of what was possible when you chose your own path. Ethan and Emily's story was ending in chaos, but mine was just beginning, and I was ready for every moment. Chapter 15, A New Beginning. Stanford's campus buzzed with spring energy, and I felt alive in its rhythm. My research project had earned praise, and I joined a study group that challenged me daily. Each step forward cemented my new beginning, a life crafted by my choices, not Ethan's mistakes. A text from Jason brought the latest news. Ethan and Emily's relationship had imploded. She'd left him after he couldn't pay her college fees, and he was back home, working odd jobs. "Karma's real," Jason wrote. I smiled faintly, feeling no satisfaction, only closure. In my past life, Ethan's betrayal had defined me, his rage, his blame for Emily's tragic end. Now I saw it for what it was, his failure, not mine. I'd given him his freedom, and he'd squandered it. Emily's departure didn't surprise me. Her loyalty was as fleeting as her tears. They'd been a perfect storm of chaos, but I'd walked away before it could pull me under. My days were full: lectures, labs, late-night coffee runs with friends. I'd found a community here, people who valued my mind and drive. The girl who'd clung to Ethan was gone, replaced by someone confident, ambitious, free. I still thought of him sometimes, not with pain, but as a lesson. His choices had cost him everything: his family's business, his future, his pride. I'd paid enough in my past life. This time, I owed him nothing. Walking across campus, I passed the library where I'd spent countless hours studying. The Stanford seal gleamed on a nearby building, a symbol of my hard-earned place. Jason's call last week had reminded me of home, but I was building a new one here. I'd visit for Chinese New Year, maybe, to see him and celebrate our victories. But my heart was here, in this vibrant world of ideas and possibility. As I sat in my dorm, reviewing notes, I found an old photo of Ethan and me tucked in a book. I didn't flinch. It was a relic of a life I'd outgrown. I set it aside, ready to donate it with the last of his gifts. My future was bright, unshadowed by his mistakes or Emily's games. Tomorrow, I present my research, take another step toward my dreams. This was my story now, a new beginning written by me for me, and I was ready to live every page.